Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. Today is Saturday, September 12th. I am Joe Sarvati, affectionately known as Coach, and I am joined by the one and only Mr. Andrew Hansen. How are you tonight, Andrew?
Oh, I'm doing well, Coach. I'm a longtime Celtics fan growing up in the Northeast. So big game 7 here just wrapped up. Gritty win over Toronto. Hats off to them and all of our Canadian members, of course, who support Toronto for a terrific series. As we've talked about here in recent shows, they do have the heart of a champion. Boston was just able to grind it out and be a couple of possessions better tonight. But a lot of fun. It's just been an exciting summer here with the NBA bubble, and we got to keep rolling.
Yeah, it's been awesome and interesting that the East Final is Boston and Miami. Not a whole lot of people had that combination, so very interesting. But the big news tonight, Andrew, is this is our first weekly podcast, and it's actually the BetUS presented podcast that we're going to do each week. BetUS we've partnered with, we announced today, and we're so excited. Tremendous folks over there. Fernando and I have been working behind the scenes putting this together. He's with BetUS, and they've been fantastic. So we're going to do this show weekly. It's the BetUS DFS Coach Talk show, which we'll record on Friday nights for Saturdays, always with Saturdays games. And then, they'll be one of our presenting sponsors, our main presenting sponsor for our shows throughout the week. So love the fact that we're working with them, and, it now really brings everything full circle that, you'll be able to go to BetUS for all of your wagering, all of your casino stuff, horse racing, all of it now in one spot, and then DFS Coach Talk for your DFS side of it. So it's a perfect marriage, and we're excited about that, and great way to kick it off here with tomorrow. Or it's sort of today because it's late,
Right.
but it's a one-game, showdown slate in the NBA tomorrow, and it is an elimination game for Houston, and the Lakers are looking to close that out in 5. So it's going to be an interesting discussion here because there's a lot of different ways you can go with this for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's an appropriate setup here for our first show presented by BetUS. As you said, terrific, exciting partnership. I can't wait to move forward there. And we've got a game of stars here with LeBron and AD matching up against Harden and Westbrook. And game 4 was just a bit of a sleepy show where
Yeah.
Houston was just kind of listless, and they made it close at the end, kind of made it seem closer than it really was. But they need to dig down deep. I mean, it's a big mountain in front of them, down 3-1, and it's going to take all of their mental fortitude to make another run at the Lakers.
Yeah, and the key factor that has brought us a lot of success, and hopefully we're reaching out to some new folks that maybe haven't seen our podcast before. We have the most loyal group of listeners. It's just awesome. So big shout out to all of them. But for any new listeners that are jumping in, through the BetUS link, we've had a heck of a run here in the NBA. We started Coach Talk prior to the COVID shutdown, and we're running strong in the NBA, and then pick right back up, and we're just a slight tick under 80% winning percentage in our FanDuel full lineup that we share with our members. So very proud of that. Wanted to give that a mention. And, again, for new listeners specifically, what we do provide at DFS Coach Talk in our Discord 30 minutes before every lock, we do a full FanDuel lineup, and we do what we call the Coach's Clipboard, which gives you a good base group of players with highlighted core and an asterisk for those that we're recommending just for GPP. So it allows you to build out your DraftKings lineup in a few different ways. It stays within all of the guidelines that they've put out. We want to do everything, above board in the right way. So, and we've been able to have great success there. Our members have just, they've loved it. We're growing. And so, if this is the first time through, check us out. We're at dfscoachtalk.com. And as far as BetUS and that whole relationship, we're going to be everywhere on social media together, and you're going to see them on our website. And as a new member to BetUS, and it's betus.com.pa. Got to remember the .pa at the end. All you have to do when you sign up as a new member is put the promo code Coach Talk. That's all one word, no space, COACHTALK, and you get 125% match on that first deposit, which is phenomenal. They're doing that exclusively for our Coach Talk listeners. So you put in 100, you get $125 free play match, and you can't beat that. With football going on and basketball and baseball, it's great times. And also, again, for the new listeners specifically, we provide for NBA, MLB, PGA, and did I say NFL?
Not yet. Might as well save the best for last. Just
best
because
for last.
That's the season is starting now. I mean, we started with basketball. Basketball is our best sport historically, but we're off to a great start in NFL, and this is the first season that we've been together for NFL. So We're looking for some huge results. Shane and I, who lead the NFL squad for us, have played many years of NFL DFS. This is the first time we're doing it together. And on that first showdown slate on Thursday, the Kansas City-Houston game, we gave out 2 lineups on FanDuel, and both of them cashed. So we're 2 for 2 to get started in the NFL season. You can still jump in this weekend and get our lineups on Sunday. And we'll have another podcast on Saturday night, posting late Saturday night, early Sunday morning to get you ready for the main slate. So take advantage of that. And if, as Coach was describing our membership, you get access to all of those sports with whatever membership you choose, whether that's the week, the month, the year, or the fall special, which is set up for, primarily for NFL DFS players. It's a membership from now to the end of the calendar year. Right. And you get a nice discount on the monthly price down to $199 for the rest of the year for all of our sports. And you get those lineups every day in every sport, every time there's a slate.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're new to DFS Coach Talk as well, I mean, you'll see a real differentiator for us is, and you'll see some of that today when we're talking about this coming game tomorrow with the Lakers and Rockets. We game script, we break it down, we look for all the intangibles that we feel give us a huge edge. We hand build our lineups. We look at all the statistics. We don't just dump everything into an optimizer and then play those lineups. I mean, we look at the statistical analysis, but again, specifically this season, it's such a unique scenario with the bubble and all the COVID things that have gone on and the scheduling. You really don't have any sample size to go off of. This is all a new world. So the best thing that we found that's really aided in these high winning percentages, including almost 80% in basketball, is just looking at the rotation, who the coach is counting on, what's happening in those situations where they can, where we're seeing any trends or things that are going to give us an edge over the competition. So, you'll find that to be a big piece of what we're doing as well. All right. We need to dive into this first game and get after it here because I know people tuned in specifically for that. So what I want to start out is betus.com.pa. The line on this game right now is the Lakers -6.5, and the over/under is a low 215.5. So pretty interesting line there. I know the last couple of games have been lower scoring, but don't remember seeing this low of a over/under on a Rockets game this season, to be honest with you. So I'd have to go back and check that, but it's definitely one of the lowest. So that is that creates an issue where, we don't have to worry about a second game on the slate and which to favor. I mean, we're going to get what we've got here. It is an elimination game. It's not going to affect Houston as much as it did like the teams with Boston, Toronto, because he plays his guys huge minutes anyway. But I guess if there is a chance to grab a few extra minutes, you would think that he would have those key guys in there, considering it's, win or go home kind of situation. So let's get your initial take on this and see, where you're leaning. I guess, the question I'll pose to you to get started here is, the four superstars in AD and LeBron and then Harden and Westbrook, are you using two of them? Are you using one in a medium build? Or what is your initial feel? Because I think everything else sort of follows once you make that decision.
Well, it is going to depend on the site and, on DraftKings, who you use as your captain. So just to give a brief overview again to our new listeners on the NBA Showdown slate, it does vary significantly between DraftKings and FanDuel.
Yes.
On FanDuel, you can just take your high-priced guys and you don't have to think about it. You put them in as the MVP, the star, and the pro, and those guys are going to get 2x their points, 1.5 and 1.2x respectively, but their price tag doesn't change. So What you're doing is you're trying to strategize about who is going to score the most fantasy points, get that guy in as your MVP, who's second, star, who's third, pro, and then you've got your two utility guys. Right. But remember, on DraftKings, your captain, he gets 1.5x the points, but he also costs 1.5x the salary.
Right.
So on DraftKings, you don't necessarily want to take the guy who's going to get the most fantasy points and plug him in as your captain. You want to strategize about how the change in price of your captain is going to affect the rest of your build. And we actually went through this on the podcast we did before the last Houston Lakers game in the showdown slate. And we talked about how on DraftKings, you really need to look at some of either the cheapest stars or some of the mid-tier guys. We talked about Westbrook. We talked about guys like Rondo and Gordon. And Rondo turned out to be the ideal captain to have last game. He had almost 40 DraftKings points, a near triple-double. And if you used him as your captain, you were allowed to get multiple studs in there. And that was the winning lineup. So same thing for me here is out of those four studs on DraftKings, Westbrook is really the main target for me as a potential captain because he's that much cheaper than all of them. And if you use Westbrook, you can get two other stars as part of your flex guys. Then the rest of your lineup is going to be a little bit, more towards the bottom of the barrel. But it's really tough if you go with AD or, Harden or LeBron. They eat up so much salary on DraftKings. So that's how I approach it. I look at Westbrook, and then I do think guys like Rondo are in play still, because he's on such a roll. I mean, can you believe that he's had this much of a roll 3 games in a row, and on DraftKings they're still keeping his price at 5.2?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. It's going to make him, wildly owned. I mean, the price has been adjusted on FanDuel, so it's evens out. But I mean, on DraftKings, you have to roster Rondo even as a blocker because everybody's going to roster him. So I'm not sure why they did that. To give you an idea too of what you're talking about, to our listeners, if you roster your captain, here are the prices. LeBron's 18.6 as your captain. Harden's 18 and Davis is 17.4. Then you have a drop off to Westbrook at 15, and then it sort of free falls from there. Covington at 12, Gordon 10.8, Tucker 9.6, Kuzma 8.7, all the way down to Rondo at 7.8. So, it just right off the jump street here, I think if you put Rondo as your captain again, are you rolling the dice that he can do that again? I mean, just that pass alone at the end where he threw it off the glass instead of taking the layup makes me, as a coach, not wanting to play him. But, I think that's going to be a very popular move by people. But a lot of times replicating, the exactly what happened the last go around isn't, the best way to do it. But so Harden at 50, or Westbrook, I mean, at 15 is your initial target here as captain, you think, on DraftKings?
It is Westbrook or Rondo again. And the funny thing is, if you put Westbrook in there, and then you get two of the other three stars,
Yes.
you can't really afford Rondo unless you want to play a $1,000 player like Taylor Horton Tucker and hope that he gets a few more
Minutes
minutes,
again.
right?
Yeah.
But you can't get Rondo and the three stars if you do Westbrook as the captain. But if you
Right.
put Rondo as the captain, you can get three of those four stars and then two guys who are actually going to get minutes. So, it just does make a lot of sense. If you think Rondo can have a similar game, then put him in there as your captain. If you don't, then you can fade him.
Well,
So
let's talk about this piece because it has everything to do with the build too. Game scripted. I'll give you my take. I just think Houston backs away. I don't see them having the grit and gut of a Toronto or the teams that have fought back and made it happen. I don't see it there. I haven't seen that spark. The fact that they came out so listless in that last game is just mind-bending. I don't know if the controversy with House, who's now left the bubble, he's not playing anymore, if that distracted them, just a lack of confidence, I'm not sure. But, they just didn't look like a team that believed they could win. So, I think the Lakers handled this game pretty easily. I'm thinking it spreads in the second half, and you're going to see some rotation of guys. So, it's not like you can fade players in this game to play another game as a showdown slate, obviously, but it does tweak my, the way I'm looking at it. I think personally in my initial build here, I want to get the guys that I feel are going to really get the minutes and can contribute and not have to dive down. I think a lot of people are going to dive to Caruso because he had a good game, which I think is a trap. I don't want to go down to Danny Green or Austin Rivers. That's a trap. He's not going to repeat that last game. Or then you got to scratch for the Caldwell Popes and Markieff Morrises and all that baloney. So you can do that, but again, you're back to that old scenario. You get 55 or 60 from your top guy, and a bottom guy gets 10 or 12. Then you're back to where you started. So, I'm gonna go through this pool of medium guys here briefly. Covington, first of all, he's the fifth highest priced guy on DraftKings, and something's not right there. I've done some research on it too, and he just did not play well or play big minutes in this last game. Now, the game beforehand, he got smacked in the face pretty good,
right.
And seemed a little, dopey.
Yep.
So, they didn't put him in concussion protocol or anything, but that may have very well affected his minutes because Green took a lot of those minutes and so did Rivers. So, I don't think Covington's a safe play. I think he's overpriced. The guys I'm looking at are this group, and tell me who stands out to you in this group, because I think they all play a decent set of minutes and have a decent usage, and that's Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker, who can be an enigma. He can play 35 minutes and get almost nothing, or he can super contribute. You just don't know. I mean, you've got Kuzma. If the game script is like I think, maybe he gets extra minutes off the bench to maintain a lead. And he has a tendency to really eat in situations like that because he's one of those I want to score dudes. And, if he's in there in a situation where they have a nice lead, he's definitely one of the guys that shoots a much higher percentage when they're up 15 as opposed to a tie game. Then you have Rondo. And that's that core right there. Gordon, Tucker, Kuzma, Rondo that I'm really zoning in on. What do you think about that group?
Well, right above that, I agree. Covington's a little bit overpriced with the way that he looked in that last game. But getting to those four mid-tier guys that you just described, Gordon, you've been on him a lot lately. He's been terrific in the bubble here of late, and you've been on him on the right nights, and I do trust him a lot, certainly more than Tucker, who's had two duds in a row.
I know.
And I do think the minutes are really starting to catch up with him because, to be out there for mid 30s minutes and come back with less than 10
And
fantasy
having to
points.
guard Anthony Davis and stuff,
Yeah.
for God's sakes.
I
Yeah.
mean, they're just asking so much of him on both ends. He plays so hard, so physical,
Yeah.
and it's just wearing him down. So I have a little bit more faith in Gordon than Tucker. And just for the bigs on that side, you can go down to Green. You save 2,200 on DraftKings. He may have a better game than Tucker again. So, I think it's worth looking at Green there. For the Lakers guys you asked about, I'm a little bit surprised that you sound that interested in Kuzma
I know
because
I'm not a Kuzma guy at all,
right,
but it's just part of that game script. I just can see him getting that extra 7 or 8 minutes, and he can score it.
yeah,
But yeah, I think he'd be sort of sneaky.
and he's had a couple games here recently where he hasn't shot as many threes. He's gotten to the rack, gotten some easy layups and dunks,
Yeah.
paired with Rondo off the bench. So that's a nice pairing if they can work together. I certainly see the upside GPP play for Kuzma because he has not been consistent.
Right.
But then Rondo on DraftKings, he's the cheapest of those
Yeah.
four,
No
and
brainer.
he's been outscoring all of them.
Yeah.
So he makes a ton of sense to me.
Well, he brought home that lineup for me the other day when he hit those 3 threes in a row in the fourth
Right.
quarter. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm high on him. I mean, he's playing with a lot of confidence, and he's really helped that team. There's no question about it. I was interested to see how he would do. I mean, he hasn't played forever, and just to jump in there the way he did and contribute right away is pretty amazing. He's an interesting dude. Yeah, I mean, it's again, I think you got to look at how far down do you want to go? Is Markieff Morris? He was sort of the darling in this last game. Are people really going to go down to Horton Tucker after he played a little bit? I mean, what do you think of those guys?
Well, I have more faith in Markieff just because of the minutes. The last three games, he's had 23, 23, and 23 minutes. So that's really important
So
on a
he's
showdown
averaging how many?
slate. Somewhere around 23. I'm not sure where, but
give or take. Yeah.
yeah. And for a guy, he didn't smash it last time, so could be an opportunity to get a little bit lower ownership. I mean, the guy has shown that he can get hot from three. Obviously, still athletic enough to get rebounds and putbacks. And if you give him 23 minutes, he can pay off that price tag on both sites. He's still cheaper on FanDuel too. He's only 7,000. And if you want to get 3 stars in there for your MVP, your star, and your pro, you got to look at guys like Markieff Morris, and I think it's worth a look. I do want to follow up though on your general commentary about the game script here.
Sure.
I listened to a couple of the interviews post game last go round, and Harden and Westbrook looked like deer in the headlights when they're asked about what was the deal, where was the energy, where was the intensity.
Right.
I mean, they didn't really have an answer either. And so it is just such a massive challenge for them to flip the switch and come out and be aggressive like we know that they can. But that's the only choice they have. And the guy that I do have the most faith in, just watching that interview, is Westbrook, because he was sort of taking it personal and talking about how, we all need to basically look in the mirror and you just got to dig down and find it, whatever it takes. And so, I mean, we know what kind of heart he has, what kind of motor he has. And so, again, to be cheaper than those other guys on DraftKings, that's why I'm really looking at him as a captain, because I just don't see him coming out and, loafing around and, not giving it every single ounce of energy he has until the final whistle. So that's the game script that I'm kind of depending on, is that he's going to lead the charge, get these guys fired up. And we know that, Harden has a big ego. He's not going to want to go out there and lay another dud and just go home quietly. So I think they're going to turn it around and at least keep it close so that we can get, more of a traditional fantasy output from the Houston guys.
And we very well could. Now, the strategy that, we sort of had talked about game scripted and anticipated, which really helped us, the last two games was that, Vogel blitzing or doubling Harden. And, which I think is just a great strategy. I don't know why everybody doesn't do that because, you can't guard him one-on-one. He's just unstoppable, as, there's no doubt about it. So run a blitz, make them dish it. And, that does really, if they do that in segments, that really helps Westbrook as well. So
right.
I think that adds to that because, I agree. He's so hard-nosed. He's going to come out and play his tail off, but that isn't going to help him make threes. He just isn't a really good shooter. So, the thing that's gone wrong with him in this series is he's turning it over. He's, which is unusual. I mean, he's always running 80 million miles an hour, but he doesn't usually just throw it out of bounds like, crazy. So, I'm thinking you're right. I think he's going to get more opportunity if they do spend some time blitzing and going after Harden. And I think he'll buckle down and not turn it over as much, penetrate, draw a lot of fouls, get quite a few assists. And, it does set up guys in that scenario where if you do have to go down, maybe Tucker steps up. And I mean, he led the NBA in corner threes. So it's not that he can't shoot the three from the corner. I mean, literally was number one from that spot. So, he may hit some. Another guy that you have to think about, what about Ben McLemore coming in, hitting a bunch of threes? I mean, I'm talking if you're really having to dig down price-wise, he's 4,200 on DraftKings. So
as
just a couple of guys. Yeah.
2,800 utility. Yeah.
2,800 utility. So, just something to think about because it does create a different situation if they do blitz Harden. So
McLemore he's the cheapest guy on DraftKings that you could kind of predict minimum has a good chance of getting like 14 minutes.
Right.
Everybody else is probably not going to play. Horton Tucker's the only guy you might look at, but yeah, I've had some success here in the bubble stacking multiple Rockets without Harden when the scenario works out like you're describing. They get the ball out of Harden's hands, Westbrook penetrates, he kicks it to Tucker in the corner, he kicks it to Gordon, he kicks it to Green. They're all out there spotting up waiting to shoot. And so you can if you pair those three or four together and they have a good shooting night, then that's the correlation that you want.
Definitely. The one big piece of news that I want to spend some real time researching throughout the day tomorrow. This is a night game, so it's 8 p.m. Game on the East Coast. So we're gonna have all day to check the news, and I'm gonna find out what the heck's up with Covington, why he played. That's the least minutes he's played ever, like this season, 22 minutes. So is he not right? If he isn't, Jeff Green is just a plug and play for me if he's going to get big minutes at that price. So, definitely check us what we do throughout the day. So, our process here is pretty easy. We put the podcast up super late night, early morning, however you want to look at it. We give you, the day to listen to the podcast, set your lineups as far as, get the contest selections, put your skeleton lineup in there, and then check us out on Twitter throughout the day. That's really important because we're posting things there. We're at DFS Coach Talk. I am at Joe Sarvadi, JoeSarvadi. He is at Language Olympic, and Shane is at DET Sports Shane. And then in Discord, if you can jump in Discord an hour or so before game time, we're chirping in there. We have a really smart community that any news or anything that's out there on Twitter, everybody's scouring everything to get an edge. And then we'll finalize, and 30 minutes before lock, we will post, as we mentioned before, our FanDuel and DraftKings stuff and get everybody ready to roll. So we've got all day tomorrow to prepare, see if there's any news or any change in anything, and then just join us in Discord. And you do that by becoming a member. Just go to dfscoachtalk.com and you can get a week, a month, a year, or just our fall special even, which runs through December. So we would love to have you join us there. I think that is it, man. That's the scoop on the one gamer. And it's, you got to make all the right calls. That's the pressure of a one gamer. You don't get any passes.
That's right.
You got to have the right lineup. So, hopefully this gives you a head start on building it and determining what's going to make the most sense. So, any final hoops words, man?
Yeah, no, fun show here, and be sure to reach out to us if you have specific questions about DFS Coach Talk or about the showdown strategy or our picks, of course. So thank you all for tuning in.
Absolutely. And we're here 7 days a week with NBA podcasts. So we do not miss a single game. We have not, and we will not. So that is it. Our charity of choice here is mambaon3.org. That's MAMBAONTHREE.org. Is a wonderful charity set up by the Bryan family. So that is it. We really appreciate it. We love that we're kicked off our very first weekly Saturday podcast for BetUS. Fantastic to have be partners there, and looking forward to just continuing to build that relationship and crushing it in DFS and crushing it in sports, gaming, and casino and everything else. So we really appreciate that. And we will definitely be back again tomorrow for our NBA, DFS, and our MLB and PGA. We're all over it. So definitely join Andrew and I again for the NBA breakdown tomorrow. And we look forward to catching you again. So thank you for joining us, and we will crush it again tomorrow in DFS.